Welcome to this week's Desk Side Chat. The conversation for this week is choosing the best affiliation option for you and your clients. We have a featured guest with us this week, Kristy Puckett with RFG. Kristy is in business development. Kristy, if you could provide a little bit of background on yourself, I think you're going to be a great resource, obviously a great resource for us on an ongoing basis, but certainly a great resource for us on the topic for this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun. I've, only been part of the community for a couple of weeks, but it's just, I feel the momentum and I feel it growing. And I just think you're creating such a special place for people to come be real. And that's really important. So just a little bit about me. I've been at RFG for almost 9 years now. I've held multiple positions there and found myself part of the business development team, about 3 years ago. And, this is just, for me, this position is so important as advisors kind of look to, see what's available out there and kind of learn what different firms can offer. I love nothing more than being part of that story. And when you hear successful stories of advisors that you've helped, it's probably the same feeling an advisor gets when they help a client, positively from a financial planning standpoint. So it's a really cool feeling to be part of that community and that overall structure. So that's what I get to do every day.
And one of the reasons you were referred in the community, just the way that you operate and engage with advisors in terms of with your business development peers at other firms, just sharing information, being very open with the advisors and transparent of when and where RFG is a fit or when another institution or another affiliation might be a better fit for an advisor. I guess as a starting point, Kristy, with numbers that are being thrown out, the valuations and things that are out there, there's a lot of opportunities for advisors to move, probably as much or more than there's ever been. At what stage or at what point should an advisor really start looking around and start considering different options?
It's funny because, there's a few, like you said, we as a community in business development, we are all very transparent with each other. And it's a really awesome feeling to know that we can refer back and forth when we think an advisor is a good fit. But I would honestly say, like, if you're not evaluating the opportunity to just know what's out there at least once a year, you're just really not doing yourself or your clients any favors, even if it's just as a way to like compare, am I still happy here? If the answer is yes, great. That's awesome. But you need to be able to put an exclamation point on your why. And, that's no different than, picking a fund for a client. Like, of course you would do your due diligence on that. It's the same way. If you're not being supported, perhaps there's another partner that can do it better.
And you mentioned funds, and I was kind of thinking about this.
Don't ask me any more questions about that, though.
Well, I was just thinking, time is our greatest resource for all of us. Mm-hmm. And, one of the big challenges as an advisor is, if I'm looking to introduce a particular sector or investigate, particular funds, due diligence, I put my hand up in the air and I'm going to have 3-4 wholesalers, maybe more banging on my door. The same thing can happen, from a business development standpoint. So how can an advisor efficiently go through that evaluation process? I agree with you. I think it is something that should be done on an ongoing basis, but how can an advisor start to do that in an efficient manner so it doesn't become too time consuming for them?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it can be. I mean, I spoke to an advisor last week that said he's in evaluation with 25 different firms, and I just, and he's got spreadsheets and all this stuff, and I'm like, how, I think most importantly, an advisor really needs to evaluate what it is they want. What's good, what's going wrong, what's going right, what things are on the wish list, what things are, can I not do this here or can I not do this anywhere? Can I have outside business activity here? Can I post on social media? Is it going to be restrictive? Like, where are your pain points? And it all starts with the evaluation of that, because at the end of the day, you got to line those things up. And some of them might not be possible, but that's okay. You need to put them on this list. From there, you can immediately kind of scratch off a lot of different affiliation types, because, you know, you've got your insurance-based broker dealers, you've got your large BDs, you've got your small BDs, you've got your wirehouses, the independent, and then the RIA only model. And immediately you can probably eliminate about 3 of those just based on what your needs and values and proposition for, you know, how you want the future of your practice to be. So I think, you know, I think that's step 1. And then I think, you know, if you talk to some of your peers, as far as like, you know, what have you seen out there? What have you, you know, there can be some mixed information about that. And that's usually where I come in, is, you know, just to help, you know, have the conversation, maybe talk through some of those things on your list. Well, maybe you can do that here, but you can't do that there, and that sort of thing. So, you know, hopefully, you know, people like myself and like Alana, you know, we get to start having those conversations at that time, and then, you know, just see what's a good fit for them. Again, like you said, the best thing is to be able to refer back and forth and know that not everybody is going to fit within, you know, one specific type of model. There's no one size fits all.
And I like how you're representing that. Start with why. You know, what are you looking to accomplish? What's important to you, and start to whittle down from there. I think, you know, that story 25 is probably a pretty ambitious number. You know, once you go through that whittling down process, what is in your mind, Kristy, what is a reasonable number of options an advisor should be considering at any given time?
I think once they decide what type of affiliation they want, do you want true independence? Is hybrid RIA going to work for you? Is the RIA only model going to work for you? Are you only fee-based, or do you need a broker-dealer relationship? Once you figure that out, that piece, I think it's reasonable to get in serious conversations with somewhere between 3 and 5. And I think, you know, if I talk to, and I don't want to label anybody as a like particular thing, but like a third party recruiter, which is what we call those who you talk to who are not particularly affiliated with any firm. They're just kind of there to talk, you know, in generality about what might work. Whenever, you know, I hear from them, that's typically the amount of firms they will want somebody to do a little bit of a deeper dive with. So I, you know, comfortably, I would say 3 to 5.
And I actually wanted to go there. You mentioned Alana Phillips with Lincoln. She talked about the kind of pros and cons of the third party recruiters. And, you know, I guess in your mind, you know, are you working hand in hand with those folks, Kristy? You know, do you have some, you know, connections there? Is it just a situation where you're just have, you know, independent business relationships? I guess, what is your experience personally in working with the third parties? And in your mind, what are some of the watch outs for advisors that might be working with a third party recruiter?
So, well, I mean, honestly, in this industry, like we all know who each other are. We all lean on each other to find good information and to, you know, be able to truly give somebody good advice. If you're not keeping pace with that, then you're not somebody that should be doing this. You know, it's important. And the other thing is too, like, you know, having been in and around the industry for 9 years, which isn't a ton of time, but I mean, it's been enough for me to know people from like, you know, some of my recruiter friends used to be wholesalers, so I knew them from that. And then, you know, some of the folks that used to work, you know, at, you know, some custodians or whatever have shifted in the industry, and now they're part of other third-party recruiting teams. And that's really cool to me because I've known these people for, you know, a lot of years for different reasons. So we have that mutual respect for each other. And I think that, you know, working with a third party firm can be very valuable. But obviously, you know, I want to talk to anybody that wants to talk to me too. But I think in my experience, and really thankfully, I mean, you hear about the good ones, you hear about the bad ones and all that kind of stuff. And I try to stay away from those that have the reputations of, getting paid to, put an advisor somewhere, getting more money to put an advisor in a specific spot. I am thankful that in my role and the type of advisor that I usually speak with is seeking independence. So they're not having conversations with wirehouses, which, typically have that reputation. So it's a little bit of a different world. And I'm thankful that I don't really have to do that much interaction with, the type of, and I'm not trying to call anybody out here, by the way. I just, but yeah, I mean, it's a great position to be in because the type of affiliations that we, most identify with are not really seeking the opportunities that are on the other side of the table there. So I've been lucky.
Well, and you mentioned Alana, and again, back to the conversation that we had with her, getting paid. She mentioned that specifically, where you have some of these third parties where their compensation is biased. It's greater with particular, so they end up appearing to be a third party on the surface, but maybe not so much when it comes down to the reality of where they're going to recommend an advisor should be looking to go.
Absolutely.
With the just recruiting, just business development in general, third party or working with someone with a specific firm, what are some of the ways that advisors can maybe get over some of the fear that they may have, that if they're with a particular affiliation, an OSJ model, and they don't want their OSJ manager to know that they're looking around, they're with a wirehouse and they're fearful about, not just their manager, but someone else maybe just simply on their in their office finding out what they're doing. What are some ways that you've seen advisors implement that may have some of these fears about basically being called out for taking a look around?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I think that, all of us really have the same mindset. I mean, the confidentiality clause is so strict. You really, when you're creating a relationship with someone and you want to make sure, like, obviously the trust is huge. Myself, Alana, any third party recruiters, we are there to help you and protect that confidentiality. Absolutely. I think some of the ways that, an advisor might hop over that hurdle to have the conversation is to realize that, it's okay to learn. Like, I'm not here to sell you anything. And good recruiters won't do that, because what we're here to do is help you learn. What is RFG? What do we do that we think sets ourselves apart in the industry? And then, you have a different conversation with somebody else. What do they do that, differentiates them in the industry? So, I think that if you look at it from an educational perspective, which they all should be, it's okay to learn. It's okay to be my friend. Like, I'm not, I'll help you figure it out and I won't tell anybody. It's kind of like therapy in a way, because you get to kind of, talk about your fears and your worries and your concerns and how can we solve these problems together, but nobody knows you're there. Right. So I think that's it. I think it's the mindset. If you are looking at it from a purely educational perspective, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
I could not agree more. And it's, one of the things that I find funny, but almost a little offensive, is when you hear, people talk about, well, who owns the client? Well, no one owns the client. The client is free to go wherever the hell they want. You may say who owns servicing on accounts, but no one owns a client. In the same way, no one owns an advisor. And, if nothing else, if you're just simply keeping your current firm straight in terms of what they're providing. I've always recommended advisors take the opportunity to look around and know what else is out there, if nothing more than to hold their current firm accountable. And so, yeah, I agree with you 100% on that, Kristy. When it comes to the actual, transition point, so there's a lot of fear, out there, certainly for advisors who, maybe don't want to show their hand. But as we've just talked about, it does make sense to at least keep their perspectives open and know what else is out there. Another fear is the transition, actually getting, clients to move and in that process. I know you can speak specifically to RFG, but just, maybe start there, but in general, what have you seen advisors do to make that process as easy on their business and as easy on their clients as possible when it comes time to actually make that transition?
I mean, if you're not planning for it, you're making a huge mistake. I mean, there are lots of ways to do that, and different firms offer different assistance. For perhaps, you need somebody that is a third-party transition specialist to help you go through that process. If you affiliate with someone like RFG, we build all that in-house. So you don't have to worry about defining the book of business and how that's going to move. Our team fully supports all the paperwork through the transition so the advisor can concentrate on the client relationship, which is the most important thing. So I think that if you don't go through like the entire planning process, like how is this going to look, for the next 6 weeks that I'm going to be planning to move firms. I need to look at my book of business. I need to make sure that if I can, if they're allowed, if they're member protocol, like, do I have everybody's information? Can I take it with me? Have I consulted an attorney? Have we talked through any compliance issues with the new firm? Have we made sure that I can do this specific marketing? How's my website going to look? What's my branding? Like all of these things, this is what RFG does. We take all of that work off of the plate of the advisors so that they can comfortably make this decision. And I think that the fear that my clients won't come with me, and I've heard people say this before, but it's worth repeating. If your clients don't come with you, sometimes it's not a bad thing. Sometimes that was not meant to be. And oftentimes a lot of advisors use the opportunity to kind of clean their books up a bit, whether it's, moving assets from one part of the business over to the other, like brokerage to advisory, vice versa, or maybe just kind of, leaving clients behind that maybe take up a little too much time. We've heard it all. And the fear of transition, it's real. I mean, it is real. It's scary. If anybody tells you it's easy, they're lying. It's not. But if you feel fully supported and you're able to make that move with a team around you that's taking care of all the things that, you normally would have to worry about, we've seen a lot of success. It's kind of mind-blowing how we've seen the opposite effect happen in some cases where advisors move and they end up actually moving more assets than they started with because, the opportunities are larger. Maybe the new firm is more capable and that sort of thing. So that would be, again, if anybody tells you it's easy, they're lying. It's not, but.
And it can lead to, as you mentioned, there may be some clients that you don't want to transition with you anyway. And that can lead to better service for the clients who do come over, potentially more assets and more opportunity, greater wallet share in working with a more exclusive, more defined set of clients. With evaluating options, as we've talked about, it's an ongoing process. It's something advisors should always really be doing, again, to hold their firms accountable. But when it does come time to actually begin a very formal process, maybe I'm evaluating 3 different options. What have you seen, Kristy, to be in with the protocol, with technology these days? What is the typical time frame from the moment I decide, okay, I'm going to go somewhere, maybe between, three different affiliation options from that moment until final transition? What is the typical length of time that you're seeing nowadays?
It really depends. There's no like true trend in numbers of weeks or months or years that it takes for somebody to finally decide what they want to do. I think that it's important to identify who might be a good partner in the event that you become so frustrated that that's the final straw. It's really difficult to answer that, but what I will say, and I'll kind of move it a little bit of a different way, if you have narrowed it down to 3 firms and you get offered the opportunity to meet the team in person and do like what we call at RFG, a VIP visit, where you're coming in, you're meeting the head of every department, you're meeting the partners, you're FaceTiming or face-to-face time with, everybody who's going to support that transition if you were to choose us. I think that is one of the most important things that you can do, because, in that meeting, in that full day and a half that we spend with the advisor, their teams, their spouses, what have you, whoever they decide to bring to this, that is the place where everybody gets to decide, is this good for us? Is it good for you? And if you've narrowed it down to 3, that's a good, it's good for you to spend your time doing that for sure. I really, really recommend that if you get to do a home office visit, take the opportunity. And if you decide when you leave that home office visit, you're great, like, this is awesome, I'm not ready, that's fine too. It's just, really truly being able to look at someone in the eye and shake their hand. That's really where it's at.
What would be, if I'm in the very preliminary stages and I just want to look around, what would be some resources that advisors should be leveraging in order to begin that initial kind of whittling down process to maybe get to those 3 different options?
I mean, it all starts with that. What's your list? What's your why? Who do you want to, even think about talking to? And I think that, resources are out there, and I find that, the people resources are the best ones. I've never made a decision about what I was going to do by reading a piece of paper or PDF or anything else. But, when we talk about that, like the resources that are available to you, I think it's always good to start with a conversation, no matter if it's with me, if it's with Alana, if it's with, oftentimes this is what's really cool. And I'm kind of going off subject. That's okay. I do that a lot. We will hear, like, after, like, we talked to somebody, they're like, oh yeah, I pulled up one of your advisors and I just called them and I was like, tell me about RFG. And it's like, wow, okay. That happened. I mean, and that's what's awesome about, being at a firm like this, when, everybody's so well supported, that I basically got like 100 other recruiters out there that will talk to advisors, and because they're on their side of the table, they're sitting exactly where, and then 2 years ago, they did that scary transition, or maybe it was a year ago, maybe it was 7 years ago. But, to be able to really know like what a firm is all about, like, I just find that to be like a really cool thing that, we get to experience and hear about a lot. But, I think that it's always good to be connected to as many people in the industry as you can. And you and I are both big believers in LinkedIn and how that works for everybody. And, if you read the information that's out there, you're not going to obviously believe everything that you read. But, you start to understand from a personality perspective where everybody's coming from. And I think that's part of, like, how you're going to choose who you're going to talk to. I don't know if that made a whole lot of sense, but that's what
I mean, it's important because, again, time is our most valuable asset. And, that is one of the, I wanted to start there in the beginning. That's one of the prominent fears that advisors have. And, as you mentioned, mutual funds, right? Like, I can put my hand in the air and say, I want to have a small cap domestic allocation. And, people are going to start knocking on my door if I put my hand in the air. Same thing as
Right.
If I put the word out, to wholesalers and let them know, hey, I'm, thinking of some options, they may carry the message or
Right.
wherever. And so it's important to, be very cognizant and thoughtful about your time. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do. Is I've been talking about the entire time we've been, building this undertaking, is we're turning the lights on, indiscriminately
Right.
turning the lights on. So if people are
Yeah.
full of shit, you're going to know it, because we're not going to say they are. The lights are
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Indiscriminately turning on the lights means we'll let, everybody who wants to step up, grab a microphone, talk about their story. And hearing from other advisors, I think is so incredibly important, because if in other cases, I love that story where you've had people reach out to an advisor on their own. Like that's the way it should be done. Because nothing against RFG or anyone else, but if you're handpicking the advisors, hey, talk to this guy. I mean, you're going to
Right.
obviously bias it, but if somebody just picks up and says, "Oh, I want to talk to that particular advisor," I mean, that's it shows the value that you're delivering, obviously, to your advisors, that people are willing to share the message, holds you accountable, RFG, to make sure you're delivering and doing a good job. But then it also gives those advisors that opportunity to have a real discussion about again, pros, cons, good, bad, like you mentioned, somebody who may have just transitioned a year or two ago, here's what I went through, and maybe learn from some of the things that I've gone through previously.
Right.
um
Yeah.
so I want to open it up, Kristy, to any members of the group who would like to engage in a conversation backstage with us. Any final thoughts for this public portion of the conversation?
Well, I just, I kind of want to put a little bit of another exclamation point on what you just said, because at RFG, we wake up every day with a servant mindset. We want to make sure that our advisors are well supported. And if they're not, we want to hear about it. We want to learn how to fix it. RFG was built all of things that we can do to make advisors' life easier. And each part of how we support them was implemented because of a need of one of them. And we will continue to be that way. And I think that, if you don't have that mindset and that servant heart, where you wake up every day accountable for, because we don't want to see an advisor unhappy and then therefore leave and, or not be able to grow or support their clients better or best. We definitely, that is our whole entire mindset. And you'll see it like all over our website, everything that we say, we wake up every day wanting to make sure those advisors are very well supported. And, that's just a huge part of, who we are. And I just really appreciate you allowing me some time on here, because, I've told you before, video is not usually my game, but hopefully it warms me up a little bit. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining, and there'll be plenty of additional opportunities, video and otherwise. So we really appreciate your insight, perspective, and your mentality, that servant mindset. As I mentioned before, no one owns a client, no one owns an advisor. The lights are fully on. People are going to know what's good and bad out there. Good people finish first. I said it, it's inevitable, right? When the lights are fully on, everything's fully transparent. You can't hide. Bad doesn't exist anymore because it can't when the lights are fully on. And so, the more we can just get these conversations out and have them in open and broad transparency, the better. So you've already been playing a big role in that. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us, Kristy. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.